Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. This is Katannya Alven speaking to you all from Worcestershire with my friend. That's where I am at the moment. I want to just focus briefly on Iran. It's not a brief situation, and I will put the link in the description box. But we'll start with this really rather delightful Maestro Zilkos video of Trump singing, but it starts with Putin.
Mama, just killed a man, put a gun up against his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead. Goodbye, everybody, I've got to go. Gotta leave you all behind and face the truth. Mama.
Okay, I'll put that link in the description box, and I think it's wonderful with Putin playing the piano to start with. Now, Iran started a long time ago. I made a video, and it was a 2-hour one. I read the whole of it, of this information, and it was about the first Shah, and then the Shah, then he handed it down to his son, who was a twin. And according to a very interesting film, his sister was a British agent. Anyway, the oil company that was set up there was BP, and so much of this is all about oil. But Britain has had its sticky fingers in there for a very long while, and actually organised for the Shah to be deposed, and actually it was the BBC that copied the tapes for the Ayatollah Khomeini, and that he eventually went back. He was in exile in Paris, but the British were behind him. So there was a lot of, I call it jiggery-pokery going on. So in this article, which is quite interesting, well, very interesting actually, until the beginning of World War I, Russia effectively ruled Iran, it says. But with the outbreak of hostilities, Russian troops withdrew from the north of the country, and Iranians convened the Third Majlis, that's their parliament. Jubilation was short-lived, however, as the country quickly turned into a battlefield between British, German, Russian and Turkish forces. So we're talking at the beginning of the World War I. The landed elite hoped to find in Germany a foil for the British and Russians, but change eventually was to come from the north, following the Russian Bolshevik Revolution. Now, this is interesting. I'm reading Fedor Shalyapin's book about his life as a singer and his life in Russia. He's Russian peasant and peasant stock, and he talks about the Bolshevik Revolution, and I've put in a couple of videos. I've read parts of that. It was a very terrible time, certainly in Russia. So following the Russian Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, the new Soviet government unilaterally cancelled the Tsarist concessions to Iran, an action that created tremendous goodwill towards the new Soviet Union, and after the Central Powers were defeated, left Britain the sole great power in Iran. In 1919, the Majlis, after much internal wrangling, so that's the government, forgive me if it's wrongly pronounced, refused a British offer of military and financial aid that effectively would have made Iran into a protectorate of Britain. The British were effectively loath to withdraw from Iran, but caved to the international pressure and removed their advisors by 1921. In that same year, British diplomats lent their support to an Iranian officer of the Persian Cossack Brigade, Reza Khan, who in the previous year had been instrumental in putting down a rebellion led by Mirza Khan, who had sought to form an independent Soviet-style republic in Iran's northern province of Gilan, in collaboration with a political writer, Zayed Zia al-Din Tabtabor. Reza Khan staged a coup in 1921 and took control of all military forces in Iran. Between 1921 and 1925, Reza Khan, first as war minister and later as prime minister under Ahmad Shah, built an army that was loyal solely to him. He only managed to forge political order in a country that for years had known nothing but turmoil. Initially, Reza Khan wished to declare himself president in the style of Turkey's secular nationalist president Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, a move fiercely opposed by the Shia ulama, and the Shia ulama are like Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini. But instead he deposed the weak Ahmad Shah and in 1925 and had himself crowned Reza Shah Pahlavi. So interesting. So the Pahlavi dynasty in 1925 to 79, Reza Shah, during the reign of Reza Shah Pahlavi, educational and judicial reforms were effected that laid the basis of a modern state and reduced the influence of the religious classes, which were the mullahs. A wide range of legal affairs that had previously been the purview of Shia religious courts were now either administered by secular courts or overseen by state bureaucracies, and as a result the status of women improved. The custom of women wearing veils was banned and the minimum age for marriage was raised. The strict religious divorce laws, which invariably favored the husband, were made more equitable. The number of availability of secular schools increased for both boys and girls, and the University of Tehran was established in 1934, further eroding what had once been a clerical monopoly on education. Nonetheless, Reza Shah was selective on what forms of modernization and secularization he would adopt. He banned trade unions and political parties and firmly muzzled the press. Oil concessions were first granted in 1901 during the Qajar period, and the first commercially exploitable petroleum deposits were found in 1908. Reza Shah renegotiated a number of these concessions despite the ire that these agreements raised among the Iranian people. The concessions were to remain a violent point of contention in Iran for decades to come. And there we have Reza Shah. Now that's the father, Reza Shah Pahlavi, that's the father of the later son who was very much in the headlines. Reza Shah needed to expand trade. His fear of Soviet control over Iran's overland routes to Europe and his apprehension at renewed Soviet and continued British presence in Iran drove him to expand trade with Nazi Germany in 1930. His refusal to abandon what he considered to be obligations to the numerous Germans in Iran served as a pretext for an Anglo-Soviet invasion of his country in 1941. Intent on ensuring the safe passage of US war material to the Soviet Union, though, through Iran, the Allies forced Reza Shah to abdicate, placing his young son, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, on the throne. I hope there's going to be a photograph of him there. Now, regarding President Trump and taking out Soleimani, here we have a Q post, and POTUS took control of Iran today. There was a Q post, today evil lost control. Today POTUS took control of Iran. Today, with pending sanctions and military actions, POTUS will gain more ammunition, intel against them. Suicide watch, the deal kept Iran quiet. The goal was to keep POTUS in until impeachment term, and bigger than the people can imagine. Treason is 1/10. Ask yourself, why all the panicking? That's of the DC rats. Ask yourself, why in UK, France and Germany so involved? Trips to the White House? What are they hiding? Why is HRC and NZ in New Zealand part of Five Eyes? Is New Zealand part of Five Eyes? Why is that relevant? Suicide watch. Q. Now I want to bring this over. Source claimed that once the sealed indictments were unsealed, the rest would be no matter who they were, with the problems with what position in government they were in. Trump's decision on assassinating Soleimani was a planned step towards achieving peace in the Middle East. The Iranian president wanted Soleimani dead as he went rogue with the IRGC under his command, following his own agenda for the Middle East. The Iranian president made a deal with President Trump to eliminate Soleimani in promise that Iran would drop nuclear development and focus on their economy. Well, there you have it. The IRGC deliberately shot down the UIA flight 752 in retaliation to the Soleimani death. In response, the Iranian government arrested multiple IRGC commanders just after Flight 752 was shot down. The feud between the US and Iran was political theatre, as deals were being made behind the scenes. Iran was expected to undergo GESARA agenda-compliant reforms this year as agreed. GESARA is Global Economic Security Reformation Act and requires peace on all earth. So a lot has been happening. I leave you with that. Thank you everybody for your likes and shares and comments. I really do appreciate it. Please look in the description box, because the swamp is being cleared on the outer side, but we've got to clear our own swamp and also take responsibility for our thoughts and our actions. And in there you will see some information about Live Success Now, and also the Delphin Leslie Figa will be coming up with his Metamorphosis event, so look out for that. The more we clear ourselves up, that helps the whole of humanity. God bless, love and light to you all. This is Katannya Alven signing out. Bye-bye.